Welcome back to Breakfast. The gap between what men and women earn has grown, with the latest figures showing women are paid nearly $4 an hour less than men. The Pay Equity Challenge Coalition is demanding the government legislate to close this gap, and its spokesperson Angela Mcleod joins me now. Good morning to you. Can I ask, why do you believe that this gap is now growing?
I mean, the assumption that we can make is that even though the wages have apparently increased, the gender pay gap has increased, more. And the assumption that we can make with that is that more men have had an increase in pay than women. But the gender pay gap is generally caused by, several factors, one of which is the majority of women being in the lowest paid jobs.
But why might we have seen men get larger pay increases in the past year than women? Is there any particular reason why we might be seeing this trend reverse?
No, I don't. I mean, it's an assumption we can make that there's probably some structural discrimination, and I think it's actually a symptom of the widening gap between the rich and the poor. That there's a lot more men in the higher paid jobs than there are women, and there's a lot more women in the lower paid jobs than there are men. So the structure is not there to support, reducing the gender pay gap.
There have been a lot of moves of late to try and get more women in those high-profile board of director type positions. Do you think that these stats indicate that that isn't working, or perhaps that they're getting there but not being paid the same?
Well, that could be the reason, absolutely. And it is a slow process having women, join the leadership ranks and boards of directors. There's a current target of 25% for some groups. The target needs to be higher. One of the recommendations of the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women is that there be temporary special measures to make that change.
Now, you mention legislation, that there have been bills drafted that would address this gap. How would they do that?
They would do that by opening up the discussion around salary, that there is some transparency around what people are paid, and measure the gender. The statistics are currently collected, so what it means is that that somebody would actually put them into some data that's useful, so that people can actually use the legislation to call for a change in salaries to reduce the gender pay gap.
So would it be that I could go to my boss and say, someone who's been in my position, who was male, earned more, I demand to be paid the same?
Yes, you can use it in your bargaining with your employer, yes.
And you don't think that there would be any opposition on the grounds of privacy or from employers having to disclose that kind of information?
There is currently opposition on that basis, but the legislation that the Members' Bill proposed is actually about keeping it private, that it's actually about being able to ask for that information and being able to have it for the purposes that you need it for.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. That is Angela Mcleod from the Pay Equity Challenge Coalition.